When it comes to big data, I don't think we're thinking big enough. What if data from temperature and precipitation and elevation could predict the next fire, flood, or heat wave? Or what if the same technology Amazon uses to predict what you're going to buy before you buy it could help emergency responders respond to natural disasters faster and more safely? Or what if information from doctors and hospitals and insurance providers could predict what patients are most likely to abuse, become addicted to, or overdose on opioids? It's the same technology Facebook uses to understand your interests and your political affiliation, even when you don't expressly provide that information. Tonight, I'm going to challenge you to reset your mind. We willingly give up our data and embrace technology to get a few cents off a gallon of gasoline, or to argue politics with a stranger on Facebook, or to get impossibly fast shipping off Amazon. I want to share 3 ideas about how I view the role of data and technology to solving some of society's biggest problems. First, I think we're trying to solve the big problems in our society with the same mindset that created those problems. Secondly, we're changing the world in big, big ways to solve things that really aren't even problems. And finally, as a society, we get the solutions that we deserve. Now, in the 1950s, at the height of the Cold War, the United States government was looking at ways of evacuating citizens in the event of a nuclear attack. In examining New York, they determined that about 1 million residents could be evacuated by ferry or rail. About another 1 million could be evacuated by the 200 lanes of outgoing traffic leaving New York, leaving 3 million residents trapped inside New York that would have to be evacuated by foot. It's no surprise then the next year, Dwight David Eisenhower signed into law the act that created the National Interstate Highway System. This was 41,000 miles of highway connecting most of the continental United States. And it looks like we solved the problem. But we actually created a much larger, more systemic problem. Because with the advent of those interstates, residents began moving out into the suburbs. They'd commute down the interstates to the city centers at work and then back home at 5 o'clock, effectively pulling all the wealth out of the cities. Now, if you look at the color-coded map behind you, that's a map of Columbus today. The brighter the red indicates the more severe poverty is. The blue indicates wealth. You can see the problem we created in the 1950s is still systemic to this day, and I think it's a problem we can solve. Now, you may be thinking, problems related to inner-city poverty is a really big problem to solve, and it seems like it would take an unimaginable amount of money and human resources to solve that problem. But I propose we've spent billions of dollars and countless hours solving much smaller things that really aren't even problems. And I give you Amazon as an example of that. So anyone around my age, you may remember, right about this time of year, you'd get the Sears catalog in the mail. And I spent hours looking at this, and you had to get your Christmas list to your parents by October for them to make the order to have presents under the tree in December. Or if you remember how commercials used to end, they would say allow 6 to 8 weeks for delivery. Can you imagine waiting 2 months for an order from Amazon? If all of you get out your phone right now and order something from Amazon, it'll be on your doorstep probably by noon tomorrow. And do you remember the first time this happened? It's probably just been in the last 8 months or so. You looked out the window, and you see a package from Amazon, and you ask your roommate or your spouse or your kids, did you order something? And they said, yeah, but I just ordered it last night, so it can't be that thing I ordered. And you go out and you open it, and it's that thing. And you say, wonder how they did that. And then we stop thinking about it. We just now assume whatever we order today, we're going to get tomorrow. Amazon has a patent that allows it to ship merchandise to you before you click that buy button. And this isn't just based on what you look at or what's on your wish list. It's based on demographics. It's based on what your neighbors are buying. It's based on what people like you are buying. And so the item gets to a distribution center very near to you. When you click buy, a van picks it up and brings it to your doorstep in what we would have called impossibly fast even 5 years ago. Now, going back to that Sears catalog, I grew up in the height of the 80s, and I spent hours dreaming about that Sears catalog, and I dreamed of waking up on Christmas Day to a pile of He-Man toys under the Christmas tree. But that was just dreaming, because my family dealt with issues like poverty and access to reliable transportation. And I told myself someday I'd be a force in fixing some of those issues and addressing those issues. So I got a little older, and I started volunteering. And I found out I'm a terrible volunteer. So I started a nonprofit, and I failed miserably there. I got involved on the periphery of local government, and I did a terrible job at that. I even found a church that I really love, and I failed to be even a mediocre door greeter there. But on the professional side, things were going really well for me. I spent about 9 years working in startups, and I spent the last 13 years starting, building, buying, selling, and investing in businesses, especially in businesses related to how data and technology can change the world. And I realized this is a way that I could start to have the impact that I wanted to have. Now we can hear these stories and we hear data technology and we start to cringe a little bit. We think about that guy at the gym who swears his phone's listening to him because he got a Facebook ad for something he never searched for. The underlying issue around the 2020 election isn't around an issue at all or a candidate. It's around the cybersecurity of the election. We use fake names when we create social media profiles. We use privacy and ad blockers when we're online. And we do all these things to protect ourselves from the bad side of data and technology. But I think we're at a crossroads. I think we can choose to live in that despair, or we can say, let's build on a foundation of hope and let's use this technology to solve the big problems. So tonight I want to take a step back and say, how can we use data to solve the biggest problems? Things like the opioid epidemic, things like malnutrition and food scarcity and mobility. Albert Einstein famously said that a problem cannot be solved with the same state of consciousness that created it. And I think all these problems we've tried and failed to solve for so long, that's why we failed. Does anyone here use Waze for your navigation app? Great. I love Waze, and it's a fundamental example of how the shift in thinking has changed. So Waze has a common goal. Its objective is to get you from point A to point B, one, very safely, and B, very quickly. It lives on our phone, so we don't have any additional tools to carry, and it pulls real-time information from 100 million users. So as we're driving, Waze understands there's road construction here, there's a detour here, there's an accident here, and in real time, it routes you to where you're trying to get to. It also uses reinforced learning models, so it understands when it gets you somewhere quickly and safely that was a really good route. It understands where your phone sits for 8 or 9 hours at night is probably your home, and where you get up and go every morning at 8 a.m. is probably where you work. Now, if you remember back to the first GPS units, and I bought one of these, and it was a lifesaver because I drove a lot for my job at the time, and I have a terrible sense of direction. And it was the size of a small TV. You'd have the suction cup, and you'd stick it on your windshield, and every time you hit a bump or it dried out, it would thump down onto your lap. And it wasn't smart. It was essentially a map on a TV. There was no intelligence. There was no crowdsourcing. And I think some of the ways we're trying to solve problems, we're still thinking about a map on a TV instead of true navigation. So I challenge you tonight to think about a new way of connecting solutions to the problems that we're facing. Now, in some ways, it's very easy to give up your data. Tonight, if you all go home and you turn on Netflix, chances are Netflix is going to suggest a show that's very appropriate for you and your family and that you're probably going to want to watch. If you wake up tomorrow morning and you're feeling kind of sad and you go to Spotify and you look for a sad song playlist, you're probably going to find a list of songs that you like and you want to listen to. These technologies use data about you, but also about people like you to provide you with exactly the right playlist or exactly the right movie. What I propose is we think beyond just movies and playlists, and we ask ourselves, what can data really do for us and for our society? The other tenet I want to talk about tonight is that society gets the businesses, organizations, and governments that we deserve. Now, capitalism, the fundamental idea behind capitalism is that companies are just a manifestation of what we all want to buy. So I doubt any of the founders of Google are here tonight, or the original engineers, or the original investors, but we built Google. Every time you do a search, every time you click an ad, every time you do a Google product, if you have a 401k or an annuity or a pension or a retirement account, you're probably investing in companies like Google, Apple, and Facebook. So you've created those companies. Every nonprofit you support, those are the ones that thrive and flourish. The people you vote for, those are the ones that become our elected government officials. We as a society, there is no they, we as a society create the solutions, and we get the solutions that we deserve. And here's an example of that. So as a society, we're creating the self-driving car industry right now. Maybe some of you have a Tesla. Maybe you just have a newer car that includes lane shift, lane control, and the cruise control that keeps it the right distance and alerts you into blind spots and is really close to self-driving. Maybe when you walk by a nice-looking Tesla, you take a picture and you post it on Instagram. Maybe through your retirement accounts, you invest in some of the companies doing this work. But we're creating the self-driving car industry, even if we're not Elon Musk. At the same time, we can create agencies like what's happening in London right now, where 9,000 people die every year from illnesses related to air pollution. But environmental agencies in England are providing sensors, air quality sensors, to commuters who can put these sensors on their bikes and their cars, and it measures air quality in real time and can help alert officials when there is high risk of pollution or danger and what areas need the most attention. so we can fight air pollution just by commuting to work. We've built companies, the DNA matching companies, where you swab your cheek and you pay a few $100s and you put it in the mail and you log online a few days later and it tells you that you have curly hair. We can create, there's similar companies out there like Be The Match, which also tracks your DNA, but then matches potential bone marrow donors to people who need the life-saving surgery of a bone marrow transplant. We've created all these satellite imaging companies, the Google Earth and the real estate type sites, where you can go and you can take a look at how much that open house down the street is going for and see the aerial photography of how nice the room addition they built on is. But we can also support drone technology like what the Nature Conservancy is using in California, where they're flying drones over fields and determining the optimum amount of irrigation to produce the optimal crop yield and reducing water usage by about 40%. We all use our shopper cards at grocery store to save some money on the products we use most. We've created those cards because we use them, and we've reinforced the organizations that created those that that's a good idea. We can also support groups like GODAN. This is an international group that's focusing on feeding the world's hungry. We're going to have 10 billion people on our planet in about 30 years. And right now, about 1/3 of all the food in the food supply chain that's meant for human consumption is wasted somewhere in that food supply chain. That's before it even gets to our plates. So we have enough food right now to feed not only our existing population, but the 10 billion people we're about to have. And groups like GODAN are looking at how do we fix that food supply chain. If you can find any object in the world you want from Amazon and have it tomorrow, we can get food on a table quickly. We use the Facebook Face app, right? We take a picture of ourselves, we say what we'll look like in 30 years, and then we post it to others. We created that app because we used it and we shared it and we made it go viral. Coincidentally, 30 years is the time frame that a lot of scientists believe the clock will run out in terms of global warming. So we can also support technology and apps that help make our homes smarter homes and reduce our carbon footprint with our heating and cooling systems, or carpooling apps that reduce our carbon footprints from the cars we drive. We got to get our steps in. We use wearables, right? We created the companies that use wearables because we talk about our steps, we post about our steps, we wear them. We can also support organizations like Scripps, which uses similar Bluetooth technology to provide vital signs from Ebola patients in West Africa to doctors and nurses, so these doctors and nurses can treat Ebola patients safely and from a distance. So all these things are really, really big problems that we're talking about. 130 people die every day from an opioid overdose. There are 50,000 people here in Columbus that are unemployed, and 1 in 5 kids in America will go hungry this year. But the most surprising part of all of these, it's not a question of solutions. We have 50,000 open jobs in Columbus right now. So with enough training and technology and transportation and childcare, we can fill those jobs. We have things like telemedicine and remote patient monitoring to treat opioid addicts. We just need a way to connect them. There is enough food to feed all the hungry if we can solve the technology problem of connecting food to the people who need food the most. Now, I play this game with my 6-year-old girl. About once a day, she comes up to me in tears because her world has ended, and she will say something like, I'll say, "Why are you crying, honey?" She'll say, "I lost my flip-flops. I can't find my flip-flops." And I say, "We're going to play problem, not a problem." And right away, she lights up because she knows this is a fun game. And I say, "Okay, I'm going to give you 2 things. You tell me which one is a problem and which one is not a problem. You lost your flip-flops, and you lost the flip-flops, and a dinosaur ate your mother." And she very quickly determines that losing the flip-flops is not really a problem, and she laughs about it. As a society, I think we need to play the same game with ourselves. So problem is, how do I feed my family? Not a problem is, how do I find a show to binge watch? But we've solved the not a problem, and it was really hard. Problem is, my friends are dying from overdoses. Not a problem is, how do I find the perfect playlist to get a great workout in? Problem is, how do I get health care for me and my unborn child? Not a problem is, how can I get these shoes shipped to me tomorrow? All the not a problem stuff, that's billions of dollars. That's countless number of man hours, and we've decided to solve those. The problem ones, we have the capability and technology to solve those as well. So this is a highway. It's a journey. Right now, we are getting caught in the traffic jam of bureaucracy. We're getting caught in the road construction of bipartisan politics. We're getting caught in the detours of underfunded social programs because we're still thinking like a GPS. So going back to that interstate highway system, if we approached that problem with the mindset that I'm proposing today, I think our suburbs and our inner cities would look very different. And that's not just being an optimist with rose-colored glasses. Right now, there's a project underway at MIT where hundreds of humans and volunteers are looking at pictures of cities in various states, and they're classifying the cities as appealing, safe, somewhere I'd like to live, somewhere I'd be concerned about. Something only a human can do. And the artificial intelligence software is crawling that and understanding, here are indicators of when a city starts to slip into urban decay. And if we can identify, once you're over here in urban decay, it's really hard to turn around. But if we can use artificial intelligence to understand those subtle clues that say we need to focus on economic development, we need to focus on affordable housing, we need to focus on affordable childcare, and catch it before it goes too far, we can prevent the next problem that was created by the interstate highways and the suburbs. So tonight I propose to you, we rethink our thinking. We rethink how we define a problem. We rethink how we support the companies and organizations and elected officials that provide real solutions, and we start creating those solutions together. Thank you.